Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about getting your head around solutions, how to best use them, when to use them, where you would use them, and more importantly, all of the idiosyncrasies around those solutions. So let's get started and jump into the desktop. So to begin, what we want to talk about is ALM and solutioning and trying to figure out how do I use a solution, when should I use a solution, and all of the details surrounding essentially solutions. So for this exercise, I am in my Lab 001 environment, and I have created this simple solution called ALM Solution Lesson. And inside of here, I have 3 objects. And before we get too far into it, let's talk about a preview item that is enabled by default now. This is called Solution Preview On, and you can disable it or turn it on if it's turned off, because again, it's on by default. And what that does when it's on is it gives you this nice categorical grouping over here where I can see that I have a single app, I have one choice, and I have a table. And then I have all of my summary information over here. With it off, you get the traditional experience, and so when you go into it, you simply get every single thing that's in a solution, and if you need to find it by type, you have to sort it, or you can come over here to the category listing here, and if I want to say just see a table, I choose that. If I want to see just a choice, I choose that. Obviously, if I want to see everything, that's nice to be able to filter down, but it doesn't aggregate for you as well. So I really do like this new solution, but unfortunately there is a bug in it, and I'm going to show you that now. But before I show you that, I kind of need to give you a little bit more prerequisite information about solutions. So solutions, and what are they, and when would you use it? A solution is nothing but a container or a box in order to put all of the assets that your application is going to use. So for example, this particular application is a Canvas app, and it's connected to a Dataverse table. And that Dataverse table has a drop-down menu or a choices column, and I only have 2 animal choices in here right now, which is cat and dog. And so these are the 3 pieces that make up my application. And what's really nice about putting it in a solution is it allows me to select my solution and export it. When I export it, I can publish all of the changes for the modules or for the componentry that is inside of the solution. I can also run a solutions checker, which is really fabulous. It does a great job at digging in, looking for common issues. It looks for accessibility issues such as alt text for screen readers and things of that nature. So it will give you a bunch of warnings, and it'll help you identify any potential problems and or issues should you try to move this from, say, right now I have this in my Lab 001 environment, but I also have the default environment, and I have a Udemy environment, or maybe I want to give it to a customer and have them install it in their environment. And so if you're selling software, or you're giving software, or distributing software, or you're creating software in environments where maybe you have a dev environment, then a QA environment, and then a user acceptance testing called UAT, or any other type of environment before it finally goes to the final environment, which should be prod or production. This is how you're going to want to do it. If you're not moving things across environment and you're building it here, it'll never leave the environment. It will never go anywhere as far as distribution. Then, in all honesty, you probably don't need to use solutions. As a best practice, it's definitely good to use it, because who knows, one day down the road, a situation may come up, especially if you're a company and you're growing. Consider that one day you may be purchased and or there may be a need for a solution down the road. And while you can most certainly add a new solution, and so for example, let's just say I created this solution and at that point it's empty, I could go ahead and add existing objects. So if I've got additional Canvas apps in my environment, which I do, I can simply go ahead and add those Canvas apps to the solution. And now you'll see under apps, I have 2 items in my solution. So you can create solutions after the fact. You don't have to create them on the onset. And that's really the nice thing about it. So I'll leave it to your discretion to figure out if you want to create it proactively as you're building it, or if you want to go in, circle back after everything's all said and done, which I got to be honest with you, I've taken both approaches, and I find that especially for complex apps, I always forget something, and as I move it from environment A to environment B, inevitably I've always forgotten a handful of things. So I always say, as a best practice, create your solution from the onset, and then what you should do is go ahead and, do it from the onset and go ahead and create it. And then, sorry, I was thinking about something else I needed to tell you guys in the video. And again, you can do it after the fact, but it gets really messy. Another thing that I want to tell you about, which is a highly dangerous thing that you need to be aware of. I mean, you can really, really cause yourself a lot of headache. So I've added this item to the solution. And let's just say I incorrectly added it, or for whatever reason I want to get rid of it. The remove has 2 very important options. So the first one is remove from this solution, which is absolutely what I want to do. The other one is delete from the environment. Okay, so before we go too far down into the weeds of this, I need to show you something else. So when you go into an environment that's fresh, there is this thing called default solution. The default solution is the default solution for the entire environment, okay? That default solution houses every single thing in your environment. You are not going to have objects either, just created here in apps or maybe a table in data. You're not going to have any objects just floating around that are not in the solution. Everything is in the default solution, okay? So anything to the environment, just think of every environment has to have a container, a default container in which to put things. And so the default solution will house all of that. That being said, I don't want you to get yourself so fearful that you decide, hey, I should never delete anything out of the default solution. Because if you want to delete it from a solution and you're never, ever, ever going to use it again, then you don't want to create and overbloat your your environment by keeping things around there because you didn't understand that the default solution is simply just the default container. So if I just want to remove it from the solution, this container, then go ahead and delete it. Where this says delete from environment, what it's really saying is delete from the environment, which means you're going to delete it from the default solution, which is the default container that everything lives in. Once you delete it from the environment, it is gone forever. You will never get it back. There's no undo. There's no, whatever. So, and to be honest with you, I may have misspoken. There may be an undo in a PowerShell command. So something tells me that there's probably some recycle bin that you might be able to get through. But if it is available, it's only going to be available through PowerShell. So I'll have to check on that. Maybe I'll put some information in the description below this video with regards to that. All right, so now that you understand the basic environment and the solutions, I'm going to remove it from this solution because I don't want to delete it permanently or, out of the environment. I just want it out of this container or this solution. So now that I have all of my solutions here, let's talk about moving this solution after I export it from, say, the environment, which is the lab 001, over to, say, the default or even the Udemy environment. So you can do 2 things with solutions when you export them, okay? So let's go jump back out to solutions. Let's select this and let's choose export. And at this point, let's just say you've published everything and you've run the solution checker, which is optional. And at this point, you're going to export. Now you have 2 options, managed and unmanaged. So what's the difference here? A managed solution, when you export it as a managed solution, that means that solution itself cannot be modified, changed, or anything, which is exactly what you want when you're moving it up the stack towards production. You don't want people going in and fiddling and monkeying with your solutioning. You can also do, and there is versioning that is part of the solutioning export. Now, if I were to export this as unmanaged, it's essentially saying, just give me a copy. When you hear the word unmanaged, just say, I want a copy of the solution, because I can move it across environments or even give it to a customer if you were creating something and selling it or giving it away or whatever, and you want them to have the full ability and full freedom to do whatever it is that they want. Right? So in that point, you don't really care. You want them to have the freedom to modify, augment, add stuff, delete stuff, change stuff, do whatever they want. They have free reign to do it. So when you want it essentially a copy with full editing rights, do it as unmanaged. If you want to lock it down to make sure that people don't monkey and fiddle with it for whatever reason, then go ahead and choose managed. Now, that being said, that's the high-level security of managed and unmanaged. There are sub-elements or sub-components that we should and need to talk about. So now that you understand managed and unmanaged, let's go back into the solution and let's look at each of these three objects, okay? So under the application, here's my application, there is this item under this ellipsis, and you'll see it up here on top of the ribbon. So basically anything under the ellipsis for the most part is also up here, and if it doesn't fit, it's hidden at the ellipsis in the end. So all of those options on the ribbon and all of the options here are one and the same. Just know there's two ways to get to the same thing. So let's choose manage property. You see, this will allow customizations or not allow customizations. And what this is just like a managed or unmanaged setting, but at the object level. So what'll happen is if you allow customizations, then you will enable the end user to import, say, for example, you're not making a copy, you're taking the solution in its entirety, and what you're doing is you're moving it from environment A to environment B. If it's managed, that means that they cannot go in and access your solution directly. However, what they can do is, remember I showed you this earlier where you can create a new solution, and let's just say this is the new solution and this is empty. You can add existing items. And when you add a solution to an environment, not only does it add the solution and the objects, but it also adds those items to the default solution for that environment, because all things go into the default solution, remember? And you can then add an existing app, like you saw that I did earlier. You can't modify that solution that you imported that's managed, but you can import objects from that solution. And so I might want to import that object, which is, say, for example, this Canvas app or that LabRat Canvas app. And if I want to import it, if that item, so for example, this item, this Canvas app item, has its managed properties set to disallow customizations, then yes, I can go ahead and import it into the solution. But then I can't modify that application because I've, at the object level, disabled the ability to edit that as well. So this is a great setting, and I see this happening a lot for people that want to create stuff and protect their intellectual property, or people that are very, very, not people rather, but companies that are rather very, very strict in how they do their ALM. They want to absolutely ensure that when all items go to prod, that not only is the solution fully managed so that you can't monkey with the solution at all, but each and every object has its customization disabled so that you can't inherit it and then try to further augment it, update it, modify it within a production environment. So just know that if you're looking at solutioning from your company's standpoint and you want to apply the maximum amount of protection to ensure integrity in your production environments, consider disabling each and every one of the objects so that they cannot be inherited. And then, you'll have this problem where somebody could, you won't have the problem rather where somebody goes in, creates a blank solution, inherits an object, and then starts modifying it in the solution that's not managed, okay? So that's a problem. And so we're going to show you an example of that as well. So let's go back in and flip the switch. Actually, I didn't apply it. Okay, so this is all said and done. So now you know everything that there really is to know about solutions. Now let me show you the bug that I told you about earlier. Okay, so under this table, so if we go under table, and I click on the, actually I click on tables, I click on this table, notice that there's no managed properties for the table here. There's no way of getting to it. I can go into the table, I can go here, I can click on settings. It's just simply not there. The bug is that when you have this new view for solutions, I forget what they call it again, solution preview, which again is on by default. When this is on and when you're in a solution and you're at the object level for table specifically, okay, this isn't a problem with choices, because under choices, if I click the choice, I have the manage property item. But when I go into the tables and I do the same thing, if I click the table, I don't get that managed item. That's the bug. That menu item is completely disabled. So how do you go ahead and get to it? Well, you have to come up here to all. And then when it's at all, you can go into the table. And then you got your access to your managed properties, which takes me to my final point. Not only do you flip the switch for this particular object, but this object has very granular or subgranular settings where if you maybe will allow customizations, you might not allow all of these customizations. So you can say disable, changing the name. You do not want them to change the name. They can inherit it in another solution and start making changes and updating it in their solution, but you don't want and you won't let them rename the object. And so that's how you would handle that. And or whatever you flip on and or off is going to disable their ability to do this function to this object in their solution. Okay, so that was the bug that I told you I was going to tell you about. And just know that you have to go here. Now, if you've got a bunch of items in here, then use the old school way of being able to actually, in this view, there's no way of dealing with it. So I guess if you have a bunch of objects, then the best practice is going to be come out here, disable this, go back into your solution so that you can go and filter by the object that you want to deal with. And then with that being said and done, you should be able to go in and then go and deal with, setting those properties that I showed and talked about earlier. All right, so that is it for this video with regards to the explanation. If you'd like, leave a comment in the comments box below, and I'll show you how to export. Actually, you know what? Let's do that. Let's just export a solution here because it's pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and, again, I've done all of this stuff here and I've run this optional checker. I'm going to choose export. We're going to export it as managed, and I'll just choose export. Now this doesn't happen very quickly. You will get a notification here, and right now the time is 8:21. I am going to pause the video and come back when it's exported. All right, that wasn't actually too bad. I have seen this take as much as 2 or 3 minutes, even though it's small, but this was almost a full minute. But it did go ahead and run within and or under a minute, and I have my download in my solution. So if I go to my downloads, it had automatically downloaded. So the key is once you choose export, and you get that, just stay on the screen, walk away, grab a coffee, do whatever it is that you have to do. But anyway, so with that being said, let's go over to the Udemy environment. And let's go over to solutions, and I've got some stuff here as well. If I choose import up here, now I can browse my default or downloads to pick that solution. And let's go ahead and choose import, and this will also take an equal amount of time on average to import the solution. And again, you'll get this currently importing, and I don't know how long it's going to take, so I'll pause one more time. Time is 8:22. All right, that took a little bit longer, or actually twice as long. It's 8:24, so you got about 2-ish types of minutes that went into importing this. So that being said, I've got the successful notification that it was imported, and if I look, I see the solution is here, and it says managed externally, and it has the padlock as locked. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit. So that being said, somehow I've lost my ability to scroll. Well, I think this is about as close as I'm going to get, but you can see now whether the lock is locked or the lock is open. And so anything that's obviously locked, that means that it's, prohibited from being able to make any changes. So if we go into it, we will get the warning. And it says you cannot directly edit the components within a managed solution. If the managed properties, remember that properties I showed you on each and every one of the objects? That's what this is talking about. If the managed property for the solution components, not the solution, but the components, which, for example, this is the choice, the table, the Canvas app, that's what they're talking about. If the managed properties for these components are set to allow customizations, then you can edit these from another unmanaged solution. So what this is saying then, if I come out here, and what I suggest to do is I would always copy the main solution, create a new solution, and do this one as the original solution name. Stick to the naming convention, so I'll just add a dash overrides, right? And so with that being said, I just need to pick a publisher. I'll just do the default one. And at that point, now I have this new solution that is named the same as the original solution, and I now have the overrides. And so now all I have to do is go in and add the tables. And so in order to add the tables, I just need to search for the original table. And I don't even think I remember what the name of the table was, to be honest with you. Let's see, I thought it started with an M. So that being said, let's make a note. All right, I am looking for, yeah, it is M. So main app table, favorite animal in the Canvas app. So let's do add existing, add table, main. Oh, that's why. I had to choose that. There we go. There's my table. All right, so now when you import it, you have the opportunity of including all of the components that are part of this main app table. So when you're creating a table, you can have relations to other tables. And so if you choose this, it's going to start bringing in all of that additional stuff. And you can also bring in and or include any table metadata along with that, because maybe programmatically you're using that in an application, or you want to use it in an application. If you're not using any of that and you simply just want to modify a component or something of that table, then just go ahead and choose add. But if you need that additional information and the relations and you want it to work, then go ahead and include the components and or the metadata if you need that. So I've got the table added. Now what I need to do is I need to add my animal choices. So let's look for choice or choices, and I don't see it here. So add existing, other, choice. There we go. Now here's all my choices, and I want to find my favorite animal. So there it is right there. Okay, so now I've got that. Now what I need to do is go in and see how it says managed externally. So now I need to go ahead and add an existing, what else did I have? I got a table, oh, the app. And it's called the Canvas app. Okay, so now I have a complete copy of my solution with all of the elements inside of the solution. And now at this point, on the overrides table, I can go into this and I can add additional items. So we can call this one, I don't know, a hamster, right? So we got a new animal in there. We can go ahead and save. And now, with that being all said and done, let's publish. All right, so let's go back to the original environment, which is my lab 001. Let's go to the apps. Let's go into the Canvas app. So here is a Canvas app, and here's that favorite animal. and I have cat and I have dog, okay? And so I go ahead and I create a new record and it winds up showing up here. I hit delete, the record goes away and everything changes here, right? So that's the simplicity of the app. Obviously, you fill this information out here, you pick your favorite animal, and then you save the record, okay? So I'll just go ahead and delete that out. All right, at this point, we'll close that down. Now let's go over to the Udemy environment where we exported from and imported into this environment. If I go to apps and we go to the Canvas app, because I made the publications, that drop down should now have hamster in it, and it does. Now, if I tried to go ahead and choose the original solution and go to my favorite animal, it's not going to let me do any changes here because it's locked down. The solution will not lock down. Now you may be saying, well, if I can go ahead and import all these solutions, then what in the heck was the point of doing this in the first place? And so the reason for this is that if you make it into a solution, you can export it out of one environment, and put it into the other, and you preserve the versioning, you preserve the actual integrity. Because remember, this augmented solution simply overrides the main solution. But you always want to have your base stable. That way, your application that you created is always guaranteed to be as guaranteed as you want to make it, right? You have the control to know that, listen, I provided something and it's going out of, whatever it is that we're creating and delivering. We know that we're delivering it working. So if you broke it, then you just need to undo your changes. And from a support and development perspective, I may not be responsible then for what you've done, augmented change. That's on you, your team, your environment. So in larger Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, a lot of times people will be responsible, or teams will be responsible for developing areas of a very large enterprise application. Let's just say somebody's trying to reconstruct an HR app. And so maybe for the onboarding process, there's one team that creates screens, that creates whatever. And at the end of the day, each of the components is done in a solution. And at the end of the entire development process, there's like this master HR solution that inherits all of these sub-solutions or sub-components from all of the other teams. And so each team is then responsible for their own deliverable. And this is a way of preserving the integrity so that if somebody overrides it, it's then on that new team and or whatever. The other scenario is, again, when you're wanting to sell a solution or give away a solution, you don't have to support it if the customer screws something up, right? You're delivering it in a lockdown state. But each of the components, you didn't flip the switch to disable them from being able to change it in the event that they create a new solution, right? So you're allowing them to do that. And at that point, any changes or breaks that they make is on them. So these are the reasons for why you would choose all of that and the different strategies and or around solutioning. So guys, I think you now have a very solid understanding of solutions, how to use them, how to export them, why you need to use them, all the getcha gotchas, the bugs, as well as how to override and also how to fully not only lock down a solution by making it managed, but to lock down the components, each of them, by flipping that switch, by disabling that. So everything that you need to know about solutions for the most part should be in this video. If I miss something or you run up against something that's not covered in this video, let me know in the comments below, and I'll do my best to try to write you back and explain whatever it is that you need to know, or if I don't know, I'll do the research and get back to you. Okay, that's it for this video. Thanks a lot and have a great day.